Hello and welcome to the weekly LinkedIn Live leadership series, Voices of Leadership. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Kathy Eastwood, your host and founder of E=Y. Each week, we explore the fascinating world of leadership, featuring voices from various generations, industries, and backgrounds. A team's job is to deliver results. The role of the leader is to empower, inspire, and enable the people and the teams to deliver those results. And there's a repeatable formula to drive that success. E3 leadership code: express plus engage plus execute, powered by emotions. However, each leader's approach to applying this code is unique because there's no one way to lead. And our live sessions really aim to showcase these diverse voices of leadership. And we get a chance to meet all different leaders across all different functions, what drives them, what their style is, etc. So before we get started and I introduce our guest, please let us know where you're calling in from in the chat. Let us know. Feel free to put your LinkedIn link so that you can network with other people and really ask questions, because we want to make this as interacting and engaging as possible. So I am very, very excited to introduce you to our next guest, Mindy Honcoop. We actually met during Disrupt HR Austin, which already tells you she's someone not afraid to challenge the status quo, which I love. Mindy is bold, curious, and deeply committed to transforming how we show up in HR. She's the founder of Agile in HR, where she leads an agile people first mindset. I love that people first. This is where we connect, Mindy, right?
Mhm.
Her work spans everything from fractional HR leadership to acting as an equity advisor to HR tech companies, helping shape products that truly meet the needs of modern workplaces. But today, I'm excited for you to hear her journey firsthand. So, Mindy, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. And please tell us, our audience, more about how did you get here? Tell us more about who Mindy is.
Aw, thank you so much, Kathy. Such a pleasure to be here. My journey came through the world of social work. So I was in my last year of school, and my husband's actually 3 years older than me, and I was one of the rare people that got married while I was still in college, and so he was
Wow.
already in the workplace, and he was having some interesting workplace interactions, and had a chance to see his kind of HR at work. And when I was in my last year, my senior year of my social work program, it was interesting. He would come home, we'd have these conversations, and it was overlaying with often the work and the studies that I had within the social work program. And he was like, you know what? My HR, I wish they were asking me those type of questions. I wish they
Mm.
were looking at it from this ecosystem perspective and really thinking about where are we at today? Where do we need to be and how do we get there? And that was really the start of the journey. He set up a conversation with me and his HR team, and that was the beginning. And so instead of pursuing social work, I jumped into the world of HR. And being in Seattle, Washington, I had tech in my background. Amazon was right, or sorry, not Amazon. Amazon is right there, but Microsoft is right there. And so that was my first job outside of university. It was at Microsoft in the world of recruitment, and everything started from there. Being through my kind of I've had this joy and curiosity that are kind of core to who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And being in the world of HR and starting out with Microsoft at the time it was, really was, I had this like beautiful, and always had these great managers. You're talking about leaders with different
Mm-hmm.
styles that early on encouraged me to ask questions, to build hypotheses, to think about the data and create opportunity statements, to design hypotheses about, if we do this, then I anticipate this will happen. Is that true or not? And not everyone gets that. Not everyone gets that opportunity. And they they led themselves with curiosity, but they also allowed the team to play. These leaders were people that they truly saw that they were only as good as their team. That was an
Mm.
early statement that the leaders that I had really kind of honed and so shaped who I am today. And in going through my career journey, they also often saw something in me that I didn't see. And then they helped kind of give that next step, kind of stretchy, kind of scary experience that kind of helped you like, oh my goodness, I just did that. And because you're resourceful, you're asking the right questions, you have someone that you know has a safe place to fall because you know you're going to fail, right? You know that you're, but they've like made it so that failing was good, like it was expected, and it was a safe place. And man, I had so many amazing leaders early on in my career, both at Microsoft and Expedia. But I realized coming through that their HR teams are really were like human centered, people first, thinking about it as a product and about how are our employees, how are we, supporting them and the business, which really kind of led as I went um, into leadership roles, starting to think about who am I now as a leader? How
Mm,
do I take aspects of this and continue it on? And as I went into smaller organizations with uniquely different challenges, how do we kind of take what we did in larger organizations, but take an aspect of that, but also understanding the ecosystem. So I always loved about social work is you can't just put a playbook. You can't cut and paste. I've
mm,
had HR leaders that try to cut and paste what they've done previously into another space, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's different people, different values, and even if they haven't identified it yet, there is this sense of who are we together? How are we getting work done? And it's really getting a sense of, okay, who are we within this ecosystem? Who do we want to be? And what is it that we're trying to come together to achieve? And how do we get really good at articulating that? And in social work, we need that so people understand, how can I thrive in this ecosystem? How can I have the right tools and resources that I need really for change management and the behaviors to be able to get from where I am? And I have in social work, it's often people that have unfortunately had unhealthy behaviors that you're working to provide something healthier to step into to get them to their future desired state, but also having the clarity within the ecosystem, allowing other people to be aware of this population. Often it's an invisible population, and so how can we create awareness within the ecosystem at the greater level to be able to say, hey, this is this population. This is how we can come together to support them. This is what their needs are. And how might we rethink how we are working together as community and community building with to even heal this ecosystem. So I often talk about work culture, healing cultures. And that's what
mm.
that's talking about. Anyways, this journey kind of in my amazing career kind of led me at the end of it in my last kind of chief people officer job as I came out and started interviewing for full-time roles, really started to see like, oh my goodness, like not everyone is doing this. Like not everyone has this kind of agile, iterative way. Like workplaces are working so quick. I've been in technology. I've worked with the engineering leaders, and I love the agile concepts because it's mostly about teaming. It's the mindset, not so much the tools. The tools are great, but it's really about that mindset of teaming and like, what is it that we're all focused on? What's the definition of done? How are we slicing down the values we deliver into something minute we can do in 2 weeks? We're bringing everyone together. We have such great clarity that we almost have self-managed teams that we hold each other accountable. We're staying in sync with communication, delivering something, and then saying, hey, okay, how did that go? How is our team doing? Now that we go in the next sprint, it's not just about what are we bringing into that sprint, but how do we work better together as a team, and
Yeah.
those retrospectives. And so taking all of that, but with human-centered design, that people first kind of approach. I mean, and really just a human-centered design is what we were already talking about like, where am I at today? Where are we going? Who are the people that are on this journey? And then how are we supporting them through that? I mean, those together, I realize this is something that not everyone knows about. Like, and so as I was interviewing, it became like advising sessions, and it was
Mm,
so interesting to see just still the mindset of regarding HR was still very static in nature. It was still very transactional in nature, and almost like we're just transacting tickets, just payroll and benefits. But I'm like, But it's not just payroll
Yeah.
and benefits. Payroll and benefits are actually strategic tools that we use to attract and retain amazing talent that we can use in different ways if we understand who's in this workplace ecosystem. What is it that we're doing together? What is it that we want to recognize, and how do we want to be able to say well done, and to motivate and to keep people focused on the right things at the right time. And then that way it's like, how can we not be thinking about these things in a strategic way? And so that's how Agile in HR was born. That's how it really started out, as kind of your true, like, kind of interim chief people officer. But then I also noticed that through where we are today in our world, and with where all the things that now of business, and like we're kind of at this like incredible moment of like the industrial revolution, right, was
Yeah.
another, and it took a period of time, but this is almost that, but within I believe, at least from what I've heard from true experts, this short window of time that we have as a function to be able, if we're transactional in any role, even outside of HR, will be obsolete, right?
Yes.
But
Hmm.
it's this moment that we have, that if we do put on this mindset of possibility and be able to think about, what is it that we're creating in work, and how we're working together, and what are the tools in which we're doing that, and how do we align people, process, and systems to truly think about culture and revenue, and how do we bridge those two together, the the HR functions and the leaders that are in this way of thinking are going to be the companies that succeed.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, Agile in HR, then I thought, oh my goodness, these smaller companies I often see are the ones that are really starting to have difficulty because they can't afford a chief people officer that's been in more
Hmm.
enterprise, that have like the tools. And the smaller companies being able to have that level of expertise and experience, but also often like HR professionals or leaders that are often kind of like maybe 2 to 5 years in, and being able to have someone come alongside of them, like the leaders I had. Like, I had these
Yeah.
incredible leaders like early on that I learned so much and modeled so much of who I am from them. And they need that. There's this gap. So Agile in HR has often just become so much of like, how do I be that leader that I had for the small medium businesses to come alongside them? Anyways, now I'm talking too much. That's what I do at Agile in HR. That's what I'm super passionate about, is how can I equip and guide our future HR professionals and leaders to be successful?
I love it. And it's interesting. Our journeys are so very different, but really kind of came together very similar in the sense of, at one point I'm like, I want to help executives drive change. But you have to focus on the people, right? It all comes down to the people. And not everyone believes that, understands it, embraces that, right? They think, nope, I just need to put the tool or I need to put the transactional process in place, and therefore everyone will get on board. But I assume you're with me in that it really doesn't get very far, right? They'll do
Mm.
just what they're told to do as opposed to connecting that much further and wanting to do even more for the team, for the organization.
Yeah.
So, so you shared so much amazing information. I'm like, okay, where do we unpack? And we've got a lot of folks that are joining us. We have folks from Milwaukee, from Maine, from Mexico, and they're all loving what you have to say. The agile, it's interesting how coming from the tech world as well. And I was working with a team one time and we were talking about teaming agreements of
Mhm.
how to work together.
Yeah.
And we used all of the agile concepts to help, right?
Mhm.
And that word done and the done, right? And retrospectives. You know, Talk about an example of where you've really seen it make a huge difference. I know you touched upon it quickly, but talk about the mindset, because not a lot of people do understand agile really
Mhm.
and why it does make a difference for teams.
Yeah. Okay, so for an HR, like, the when I come into an HR organization, to just being able to also start implementing slowly some of the concepts and mindset of agile. One of the when I was a head of people, kind of coming in, and I realized that the definition of done really also helps bring a team together, and it really helps understand, okay, are we truly how do we know this is done? And Brene Brown even says paint done.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is that painting gonna look like? Where's a tree gonna exactly be in that painting? Where is the sun gonna be shining, or is the sun setting, or there's a sun, but how is the sun in this painting? It getting really clear. And what color is the sun? Is it golden hue or yellow? I mean, it's really getting down because we can't assume so much.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I coming into this team, I realized that there was a great gap, and the frustration was often like, "Well, I thought you were going to get this done."
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I did. I got it done. This is
Done.
exactly what you asked for. You asked for a checklist. No, but I asked for a checklist for this very specific thing, with these, but you're missing like who's owning this in the checklist. Well, that's a clearly they weren't aligned on this checklist. Yes, they both were talking about a checklist,
Yep.
but Bob wanted a more precise checklist with clear owners for the items, and Jane produced a checklist, but it was missing some of the elements that Bob had. Now, if they would have had a done conversation, a painting done conversation, then Jane would have asked Bob more questions together. Like, okay, do we see this end result? And now we're aligned, and I know Jane knows exactly what Bob wants. And so just even those things, and taking the time to not just take the quick email, hey, can you go do this? Well, what do you mean when you say you want me to go do this? What
Yep.
does success look like for you in this? What are you seeking to accomplish with this? So even just as simple as that are some of like the first initial is, we are moving so quick. We have so many notifications. And when we're quickly moving and going from Zoom meeting to Zoom meeting, have we taken the time to actually understand what those action items are and what our role is in meeting the expectations of success for those items?
Yeah. And I love it, Mindy, because with the E3 leadership code, that's the express piece, right? Is really
Mm,
painting the end vision. Where are
love
we
that.
going? Why are we going? How are you going to know you're there? How will it feel differently?
Yeah.
Right. And I
Yeah.
find sometimes helping people envision what does it look like at that end and what is it going to feel like, right? Because some people are from the head and some people are,
Yes.
show up
Yes.
from the heart
Yeah.
and they go, oh, all right. But, and what I heard you say, it's about painting the picture, but
Mhm.
not telling them how to do it,
Exactly. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And thinking
Yep.
idealistically, okay, let's paint the end. I'm not going to tell you how to do it,
Mm-mm.
but let's agree on where we're heading to.
Yes.
And then we can engage people and they get excited because no one wants to be micromanaged.
No, right. Yeah. They didn't say, Jane, do this and this and this and this to get the checklist done.
Yep, exactly. I love it. Now, do you also use the term done for the execution side of it? Because that was one of the things that one of the leadership executive teams I was working with, we actually put done
Mm,
because you got the picture, right? Here's
yes.
what done looks like.
Yes.
Have we actually completed it?
Uh-huh.
'Cause
Yeah.
we forget sometimes like all
Mhm.
of the different pieces.
Right, right. And that can look a little bit, there's different ways to do done. One of them could be if there's like an approval process or a testing phase. Done would mean that it went through our agreed upon like testing or approval process. And so yes, it's done, but now it's done because it's been approved and confirmed and it passed the testing, which I really love because there are definitely things that we should be testing first and making sure it actually works. Um, and
Yeah,
so,
I
yes,
really
I have, like, used that done.
Yeah, I love it. And one of our participants said, "Done is a very interesting concept because
Mhm.
often we move so quickly we don't actually know what we want, and it forces us to to understand and define."
Mhm.
I think
Yes,
that's very well said.
right? And did we 100%, because I've seen so many teams done, yet there was, like, no communication plan. It's on the website, but no one knows it's there. They're like, "Why is no one using this?" Oh, was it really done? Did we tell
Yep.
people? Yeah,
Yeah, and Ralph actually said that communicating is key,
it's
right? It's
key. Yeah.
having that communication of what we're going to do, what we're currently doing, right? Engaging all
Mhm.
the right stakeholders, and then making sure you execute and all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I love it. One of the other things in agile world is the retrospective
Yes.
concept,
So powerful.
and I assume you bring that into
Mhm.
a lot of the work
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah, in so many different ways. I do retrospectives on myself. That's like
Hmm.
journaling for me.
Yep.
But yes, also with the teams like coming after and, even if I'm mentoring and coaching, like helping, people kind of walk through a retrospective of what occurred, how, what went really it's also fun. You can do retrospective games. I also so you can mix it up. It's like it incorporates play into work,
Hmm.
which is the power of play in work. So, you don't have to do the same retrospective template each time. At the end of the day, the whole purpose is to think about, okay, let's celebrate our wins. What went really well? What could we do better together? What could we improve? What are those opportunities for improvements? And then what are the kind of the next steps? How are we going to take this in and commit to what we're going to do next time? We can't do all the things, but maybe what are one or two things that we prioritize together to try out?
Yeah. And Mindy, do you find sometimes you really have to set the culture for people to be honest
Oh,
on
yes. There has to be
what?
trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because- Go ahead.
Otherwise, it becomes defensiveness and pointing fingers, and that's where you're talking about team agreements, and also called team norms.
Hmm.
Where if that's present on a team, we can call that out and hold each other accountable for when maybe blaming happens or defensiveness, because we definitely coming from like Patrick Lencioni, we want to make sure we're maintaining healthy conflict and
Yep.
not going to either end of the spectrum, because you could also in retrospectives, if there's a lack of trust, you could get artificial harmony and you might just be hearing from one voice and then you have a lot of blind spots that aren't that are staying blind.
Yeah. And, Ralph's asking, like, how does that work? Like, how do you start to build?
Yeah.
And it, so one of the things we do a lot of is trying to help people be aware of themselves and
Yes.
of others and how they show up. I heard a lot of what you talked about in the beginning and that experience on the social work. No two people are the same. No two
No,
situations
that's
are
right.
the same.
Yeah.
Right. So do you find it's really about helping people understand where people are coming from, what their
Uh-huh.
experiences are, and what their intent is?
Yeah, it starts with you. Right? I mean, it starts with you and I, and then when you're coming together as a team, also creating team awareness, right?
Yeah.
Who am I in this team, and what's our team identity? And often we have to start from a place um, of that self awareness, but in the retrospective, also thinking, like, hey, what could I? But often we'll start with anonymity. We'll just have the same color post-it notes, or if you're in a virtual board, let's not have the name of the person around the arrow and where they're going on the Miro board. And being able to place all those thoughts coming to the meeting prepared. So it is thinking about kind of what could I have done differently, but also what could have the team have done differently. And then as people get more comfortable with the exercise and the trust is building, then you start to think about and offer up the is it time now? Is a team given permission to start to speak versus speaking through the post-it notes?
Yeah. I love it. So we have a question coming in. So Mindy, I imagine when you work with various teams and organizations, they don't always have a good culture in place that allows trust. So how do you break through in the short term?
Yeah, I think some of the that's so good, right? Because you're coming into an organization, and often we all can work on trust. And where is that healthy, level of trust? I think I always start first with the anonymous like feature, or
Mm,
and being able to try and help people give voice into that. Even like, kind of reflecting, do people feel safe even like sharing in this space? That could also look like coming in and having one-on-ones with with each person prior to a facilitated session. Making sure that they understand why are we doing this is
yeah.
so important. And being sometimes leaders, it's really good for leaders. Leaders often initiate these type of conversations, and it's good for them to be able to be transparent and say, hey, maybe there's something that they want to do better at, and they can't know what that is or how to help move the team forward. They're blocked. And so they've asked for someone to come in to try and help them be able to create awareness, to get unblocked, to think about what are healthy team behaviors that we should take on. And that's why we're doing this. And that's why I'm participating. And I know that I need to be better, and I can't know how to be better without your feedback. And so together, let's discover what that is in a safe place without retribution.
Yeah, I love it. One of the things I've seen work also really well is helping people think about that no one wakes up with bad intent.
Yes, that's so true. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And when you put that lens on and you say, okay, if no one wakes up with bad intent and people are not out to get me,
Hmm.
then what else might be going on? And how do we make this less personal?
Yes.
Right? And we're
Yes.
together, we want to improve together. And so I need to understand where they're coming from, and I'm going to assume positive intent.
Right. I was recently at a conference. It was a running remote conference, and all the staff members had default trust,
Mm.
which I just love, like default to trust. It was such a good visual reminder of what you were just saying.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, sometimes just starting from that place of saying, because there is the whole continuum. Some people will come in, I'm going to doubt you no matter what. That's
That's
just
right.
my
That's right.
personality.
Yep.
And the high performing teams are the ones that put trust first.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
it's the team first. So if someone does something that doesn't feel right, there's probably something else as opposed they're not trying to screw me. So
No, right? It's that intent thing, and someone who, and then a lot of the times a naysayer, unfortunately, is perceived as negative, whereas that naysayer actually has some really great, if the intent's good, some really great perspectives, and it's not meant to be a ding. It's just that they're questioning a lot of things, and like, we should actually be thinking about some of these things.
yeah, absolutely. So, Mindy, at the beginning of the introduction, as you were chatting with us, you were talking about you had amazing leaders over your career.
Mhm.
Did you have one leader that was not so good that helped
Yes,
you
later.
recognize?
Yes. I I started out with all these amazing leaders, and then I started to, towards the more like the end of my career, start to get some interesting leaders that had a lot of different opportunities of to they had a lot of opportunities. I'll just put it that way. And I learned a ton from them of what not to do. Um and how to show. The thing is, I don't say they were bad leaders.
Mm,
They all, uniquely, as a social worker, I like truly believe, it's like, what brought this person to this moment? And what's going on underneath here? You never know what personally might be going on that might have led to these like unhealthy, or what I was perceiving as
mm,
unhealthy behaviors. And like, also, like, why is this, why am I reacting this way? This is triggering me in an interesting way. I think that it those leaders that had, how I perceived behaviors that could have been better, I do learn so much from them. It reminds me that I might be doing that for someone else. And how as a leader, we have to spend so much time in our personal retrospectives.
mm.
It's so important, because if we're moving super quick and if we're in a bad day, there are going to be those moments, and every moment, it could just be one moment, but that breaks the trust.
Yes.
That And if that continues and we're not aware of it, then we could end up being, for someone else, the having a lot of unhealthy behaviors.
Yeah, I love it. And you've used the word awareness a ton as we've been talking. And I agree with you. And it really starts with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Knowing ourselves really well, because once we understand ourselves, then we can see how other people might perceive us
Mhm.
and then start to understand their patterns and behaviors.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And, it's when you get leaders, I think that is the superpower of great leaders is
Yeah.
awareness. If I had to pick one thing, because that then builds on, you talked about curiosity, you talked about people first, right? Like
Mhm.
it's all important, but
Yes.
having that element of awareness and realizing that I'm sure there's people that thought I was a bad manager. And again, maybe not bad, but not
Right.
optimal for
Right.
them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And I always
Yes.
stop and think, when might that have been? What was I doing?
Yes.
Why would that be?
Mhm. Yeah, 100%.
I
Yeah,
love
I
it.
love that.
So believe it or not, we are
I
at the bottom of
know.
this time
I feel
always
like
goes so fast.
it could go forever. I know. I knew it was gonna be quick. I love our conversations, Kathy.
Yeah, me as well. And so, what advice do you have for HR leaders or any leaders that, because I think everybody's leaders and having a people first, what advice would you have for
Mm,
people to really build trust within their organization?
yeah. It's, well, first of all, I think it's about staying curious and seeking to understand. Right now, it's so easy to hunker down and to without even realizing it. I think it's also about where is fear showing up right now for
Oh, I
us
love it.
and how is that impacting maybe some of how we're responding to things and really being able by remaining curious we can always the retrospectives on ourselves being able to understand how fear might be impacting us because when we lose sense of that, emotions get blurred into facts. And there's a difference between fact and
Mm,
emotion. And as leaders, we need to be able to help model and help our direct reports and our team members be able to have a sense of those two things differently. um, I think for as HR leaders, I really do. I think remaining curiosity, like, and yes, there is a lot. It is difficult right now. There's so many people in overwhelm,
mm.
and and a lot of that overwhelm creates there's this fear. We get stuck, and there's always something we can do. There's always one thing, and it doesn't have to be a bazillion things. It's just try one small thing differently, even if that's reaching out and asking for help, if it's reaching out and realizing, you know what, I don't like where my mindset is, I am in fear and I don't know how to get out. That is a step forward.
I love it. Great advice. So, Mindy, how can people learn more? I think Imelda has put in about
Ah,
your website,
yes.
and I hear you just put a new newsletter out. Is that
Yeah,
right?
I'm starting a new newsletter. Yeah, so there's a newsletter tab on my website. So if you'd like to subscribe, click on the newsletter tab and provide me with your name. I'm not going to spam people. I don't want to overwhelm. We already are overwhelmed as HR leaders, and so it's just meant to be insightful tidbits that come on a healthy cadence.
I love it. Excellent. So please reach out to Mindy, connect with her, and subscribe to her newsletter. And if anyone is looking for an opportunity to learn more about themselves, we actually have a boot camp that's kicking off next Wednesday, and it really focuses on what does great leadership look like, being aware of yourself so that you can better work with others, and really learning how to drive change.
That sounds amazing.
Thanks. Well, pleasure meeting you all. Thanks for joining. Mindy, thank you so much for being here. You have
Hmm.
so much knowledge to impart,
Oh, thank
and
you.
I would love to have you on again because
I
I
would
think you
love
and
to
I
be
could
on
talk for
again.
hours.
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Thanks so much, all,
Yeah.
and have a great day. Thank you.
Aw, thank you.